Okay, so I see that Daniel and Doug had a question that indicates to me a misunderstanding of when we're activating Midas Dome. So let's go back and read the question and see if I'm misunderstanding. Either I'm misunderstanding your question or you're misunderstanding the Gemara. I'm not sure which it is. Okay, or it could be both. Let me reread. Let me find your question for a minute. Okay, so here's what you wrote. Where are we up to here? Yeah. Okay. Since the owner wants money instead of grinding services. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that the owner now doesn't need the grinding services and he wants money. Okay. In other words, he's entitled to rent and he says, instead of rent paying the grinding services, I want money. So that has nothing to do with Miratz Dom. He's entitled to get compensated. Now he doesn't need the grinding services, and it seems like from the Mishnah, according to Rav Avira, that the only reason why we make the husband pay money is because she has no use for the extra food. And in the event that the maskir has no use for the extra wheat, then we're saying he can demand rent or cancel the deal. All of that is in the event that the socher has no other means of paying him money. But the midas don't kicks in the opposite direction. If the socher could find other customers, if the socher could find other customers, let's go. If the socher can't find other customers, and the masker has what to do with the wheat, so the socher can say, I'm not changing the deal. That has nothing to do with miras dom. That has to do with the fact we had a deal. I'm going to continue providing the deal. You have a problem, it's your problem. You go figure out what to do with the wheat, it's your problem. This has nothing to do with miras dom. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying?
Look, I made the mistake of not making it clear that I really had they're really two separate questions.
Well, make sure you ask the right one.
No,
Okay.
they're both right. They're just two different questions. In other words, the first question is kind of along the lines of Pinchas's reasoning, like, my high that the maskir can just change the terms of the deal. The terms of the original agreement were that the socher would pay the rental with providing services in kind. And so now the maskir, wants to change the terms of the deal. So if he wants to change the terms, let him go out and get the extra
That's
customers.
exactly what we're saying. He can't change the terms of the deal. The Socher
Right.
can very sorry. I'm very sorry. The deal was giving you grinding services. I will continue giving you grinding services.
No,
That's
I understand, but the maskir wants money.
he
So
wants
I'm
money instead
saying,
of grinding services, and we say he
what?
can't. He can't
So,
force the Socher to give him money instead of grinding services.
well, the thing is, I mean, look, according to the you know, if the maskir also can't find what to
Wait,
do with
wait,
the extra
wait,
weed,
wait,
he can cancel the deal.
wait. Go step by step. Let's go.
No, I'm just saying, as an intermediary step,
No, but
let the maskir step in and get customers for the socher so that the socher can pay him money. Why should it fall on the socher's shoulders?
it doesn't. I don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't fall on the Socher's shoulders. It does not fall on the Socher's shoulders. The only time we say that the Socher should give money is when he has available alternative resources for it. Then we say miras dom, since zenene vizel lo chaser. Why shouldn't you go ahead and do the guy a favor and be a mensch, be a mensch? And since to you want to grind, you can continue grinding. You want to give grinding services. So instead of giving grinding services to the maskir, give grinding services to your next door neighbor. He'll pay you the money and you'll pass the money on to the maskir so that the maskir can get money, because he doesn't need grinding services. It doesn't make sense for you to force the grinding services on the maskir that he doesn't need when you have legitimate and easily available alternatives. That's kofin al midas dom. It only gets complicated when the maskir has nothing to do with the extra wheat. It really has nothing to do with the extra wheat.
Right, but Rishonim also say that since the maskir is wealthy, he has a better ability to absorb the loss. So let him absorb the loss.
No, we don't say that. Nobody says that. Nobody says
they
that.
do.
He doesn't say absorb the loss.
He says that's the implication of pointing out that he's wealthy. Yeah, what's the point of pointing out that he's wealthy?
Doug, why are you focusing on an exceptional, extreme shita? Take the basic shita. The basic shita is that if the maskir has no way of benefiting from that wheat, if he has no way of benefiting from the wheat, so he's going to end up getting nothing out of he rented his grindstone.
Right.
He's getting nothing for it.
Right.
So in that case, there is a shita. There is a shita that says it's his problem, too bad. But there is a shita that says, you know what? Then he can cancel, he can demand money, the socher can refuse money, and then the maskir can say, then let's call off the whole deal.
So then the socher loses the ability to grind wheat for himself or whatever he was doing with the the grinding that he was doing not for the maskir.
That again, it's at the end of the day, you have to decide whether rental is a sale, in which case you can't, as we say, the Rosh says that schirus is mechira liyom, and therefore, of course, the maskir can't do it. But if rental is something that's a little more flexible, so then there's a little more wiggle room. There's a little more room to say to the socher, if you aren't willing to find a customer to replace. Remember, we're talking here. Remember, you got to get the real case. The socher has been grinding. All we're telling the socher is instead of grinding for the maskir, grind for somebody else. That's all we're telling him.
And if he can't grind for somebody else?
So then we've got to decide. That's always, somebody's got to lose. So it depends how you define schirus. Exactly how do you define schirus? Do you define schirus as something reversible or irreversible? That's exactly the question.
Yeah, but I don't see that those are the only factors involved here. The maskir wants money now because he doesn't need the grinding services. So why is it not legitimate to suggest let him find the customers for the socher?
No, that's not even on the radar screen. It's not on the radar screen for him to find the customers for the socher.
Why not?
If there's customers, the socher has to find them. And if they're not, then the maskir has to take the wheat. No, the whole point is that the maskir should find customers for his grinding stone. Wait, no. Why did you skip an important step? If there are customers for grinding wheat, then we say to the maskir, go find customers for your extra wheat. That's for sure. Everybody agrees that.
No, the socher.
No. You got to know for sure. Everybody agrees. If the maskir will not lose,
right?
Of course, the socher can continue grinding for him.
Okay.
But how could the maskir not lose? Because the maskir could find customers for the extra wheat. Don't make the maskir do the socher's job. Either the maskir could find customers, in which case then he's got to find the customers. That's the whole point.
That's what I'm saying.
That means he can use the extra wheat.
Where did we see that?
Everybody says that.
Give me one.
If the maskir, that was the whole point of Rav Avira. Tchon v'zavin, tchon v'osiv. I'm going to grind for you, and you do whatever you want with your wheat. That's exactly the psak of Rav Avira.
Okay.
That's exactly what Rav Avira says. It only gets complicated either when the socher has an easy way to replace the maskir's grinding services with other grinding services for money. Then we activate Midas Dom, Kofin al Midas Dom. Or it gets complicated, and that's pretty simple. Everybody agrees on that. Or the maskir will lose. Then it becomes complicated. Now you have a machlokas rishonim, and that's a function of how you define schirus. when the masker will lose and the socher can't find customers. The socher can't find customers. The only way he can keep the rental going is by providing wheat to the masker. And the masker will lose because he has nothing to do with that wheat. Then you have a machlokus. What's the definition of schirus?
Okay.
Are you following that? That's the only point of contention because you have to define schirus. Daniel, did you have a different?
I have a little bit of a different question. I thought that Doug was going in that direction. I still have like a big question mark of like, who is over on Midas Dome? First of all, is Midas Dome and ignoring that? That's question number one.
Well, let's not make it complicated. Let's make it very simple. Let's make it very simple.
So now who's over Midas Dome? I don't understand.
If the socher has alternate customers for the wheat that he's grinding for the masker,
right?
Now the socher is going to say, "Too bad. I'm going to grind your wheat, and it's your problem."
Oh, so that's
the socher could easily get other people to do grinding services and get money for it, and pass the money on to the masker, which is what the masker really wants. The masker wants money. Is there a way for the socher to painlessly give the masker money?
Right. Okay. So in that case, we are koife the socher to give money.
To find those customers and pay the masker money. Yes.
Is there also a case the other way around?
No. Where does the masker? The masker has no midas dom here. Where's the masker? The masker is coming with it. The masker is coming with a claim, and the socher's claim is, "I'm very sorry, we had a deal. We had a deal." That's the simple understanding. There's no midas dom on the masker's part. The masker never is even put into a situation of midas dom. Okay.
So that's my second question, though. It was a second question. Obviously, it's all related, but it's not dependent on the first one. My second question was, as I understand it, Midas Sodom, at least as it's used here, refers to not doing something for someone that you could do.
Doesn't matter to you. You will keep doing the same thing with the same results.
Right. So how does that equate to the wickedness of the Anshe Sodom?
The masker, that's a hashkafic question. The masker doesn't have any responsibility to the socher. The masker has no responsibility to the socher. The socher has a responsibility to the masker.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with we're applying it to the socher. I'm not questioning that. All I'm saying, it seems to me that the language is rather strong for what's going on here.
I said that's something we'll have to deal with down the road. Let's open Kama. That's the next place where Kofin al Midas Dom comes up. If you remember, we already had it, and we're gonna access that in the Tosas here in Bava Kama, but we had it. You remember the machlokas when there are 3 yorshim, and one of the yorshim has a field adjacent to the Yerusha. Right. And now the question is, do we throw lotteries to decide who gets which field? Or can the one who has adjacency say, look, to you guys it doesn't matter because every field is worth exactly the same. There's absolutely no difference between the fields. Okay, and therefore, please give me the field adjacent, and you guys do a lottery on the other 2 fields. And there is an opinion of Kofin al Midas Dom, because to the other 2 brothers, what difference does it make whether there's a lottery or not? Right? They don't care which field they get, and to the adjacent guy, it makes a big difference. So we say Kofin al Midas Dom. And there's a machlokas there because they could say, and we'll have to see why they're allowed to say, since we do agree Kofin al Midas Dom, why don't we say it over there? And that's exactly the whole sugya. This is the whole sugya, Rabbosai, of Kofin al Midas Dom. Okay? All right. So let's open up Bava Kama. And the Bava Kama starts on Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. There's a little bit of an introductory give and take there, but what we want is Amar Le. 2, 4, 5 lines from the bottom, Chaf Amud Aleph, Bava Kama. We did do this Gemara a couple of years ago. But now we're going to see it again through a little bit of different eyes, and we're a lot smarter now than we were 2 years ago. Okay? So, Chaf Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Le. Hadar bechatzer chavero shalomi daito. And even the shalomi daito, simply the simple understanding, although we're going to modify it. Simple understanding is, and certainly Rashi learns pshat like that. Shalomi Daita means the guy doesn't know about it. Shimon's on vacation. His house is empty. His backyard is empty. Maybe let's not talk about a house. We'll talk about a backyard. Shimon is on vacation. Shimon's on vacation. His backyard is empty. Reuven comes in and pitches a tent in Reuven's backyard on the patio. Okay? So that's Darba Chatzar Chaver Shalomi Daito. The question is, Tzarech la'alot lo schar or ain't tzarech la'alot lo schar? Can Shimon demand rent from Reuven for having squatted in his backyard? Okay, everybody hear the problem. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, what's the scenario?
Could the Rosh Shiva just where are we? Get Daf Chaf.
5 lines from the bottom, Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. 5 lines from the bottom.
Thank you.
Amar le adar b'chatzar chaver shalomi daito tzarech la'alot lo scharo ein tzarech la'alot lo schar. Okay, so says the Gemara Hechidami. Ilema b'chatzar delo kaima la'agra. Your backyard, which you never rent out to anybody, and Gavra delo avid lemegar. And this guy, he never pays rent to pitch his tent, either because he has other houses or because he's always invited to places, and he would never spend money to utilize the chutzner. So he didn't have any hana'ah, because he didn't save even $1. And the Bala Chutzner had no loss, because it's lo kaima la'agra, he never rents it out. So there's no loss to the Bala Chutzner, there's no gain to the dar, and therefore pshita, zeh lo nene v'zeh lo chutzner. Reuven didn't gain and Shimon didn't lose. So what is there to pay? There's nothing to pay. Okay?
Excuse me, like I already had that question already then. Why is the Gemara saying that he is not having any hana? How is there such a mistake?
Hana means saving money. Hana means saving money. If you have a beautiful painting hanging from the roof, hanging from the wall of your building, okay, and I go by and I look at it and I have tremendous, wow, unbelievable to see that painting. But I had no financial benefit from that.
Yeah, but this I understand, I hear that. But this person here, he is squatting on somebody's property
with no financial benefit.
So why is he there?
He could put his tent anywhere.
You're asking, as they say in Yiddish, you've heard the phrase, "Frechnish kin kashas of amaisa." The Gemara's full of this. We're talking about what the guy did. What's the din when this happens?
It's just hard for me to imagine that type of scenario.
But it is. Good. So then you're fine. But the Gemara says, in the event that was the scenario, is it clear that he doesn't have to pay anything?
That's what the Gemara says.
No, but you have to know why. If you don't know why the Gemara says it, you're never going to go through the whole sugya.
I think, Daniel, I think you can understand it this way. It was also very, very hard for me to swallow this, and it's still hard for me to swallow it. But I think you have to understand it like this. We're working from an assumption that any economic benefit that's out there on the market, and you get it like in a windfall situation, you have to pay for it somehow. The assumption of the Gemara is otherwise, that this is a guy, let's call him a freeloader. He never pays for this stuff. This is the way he lives his life. He never would pay for it.
Be careful. Be careful. If he squats, because what happens if he squats in a chutzner da'avid le'ogir? He would never pay for it, but he went in and sat and lived in a place that the owner normally rents it.
Oh, yeah, right. That would be different. But
he got no financial benefit.
But this guy never pay. He never pays. He wouldn't pay.
He doesn't have to pay because he doesn't.
Again, you guys have to. I hear what you want to say. This case is actually going to be the machlokas, but we've got to know that we talk about hana'ah means financial benefit. That's the definition of hana'ah. It has to be judiciable. If you can't place a price tag on it, it can't be judiciable.
It just seems very arbitrary to have this socher, this squatter.
Yeah, don't call him a socher, call him a squatter. He's not a socher.
Squatter. To have this squatter define himself as, hey.
No, he doesn't define. Oh, no. He's got to go into court and prove that he had no financial benefit. He's going to have to prove that he had no financial benefit. He's got to prove that, you know what, I had 3 houses available to me because I own 3 houses. I own 3 houses in the city. But you know what? I decided to go here. Don't ask a question of the Misa. This is what happened. He has other places, or he shows you a list of 6 people that invited him for free to stay in their house, and he turned all of them down. Okay? So he had no financial benefit, meaning if he wouldn't have done this, he would have gotten the same results without paying a penny. That's called lo nene. He got the same results without paying a penny. That's lo nene. That's a
There's a
definition.
contemporary example of this. In America, people rent RVs, and there's this whole subculture where you could park on people's farm, driveway, cul-de-sac, whatever, and they even let you pour the water out, take water from their faucet, whatever, and they don't charge for it. And one day the guy does it some places, figuring everyone in this county does that, and the person says, "You have to pay. You were on my property." He goes,
Wait a
"Well,
minute. Are you again? You've got right now. We are lo ovid la ogir. We're talking about a place that is never rented. The owner never charges rent.
no, I'm saying it's a network where it's always free. That actually exists in many places.
Okay, again, let's keep focused on the scenarios of the Gemara. The first thing is that if it's chaser lo kaima la agra v'gaver de lo avid lemegar ze lo nenev ze lo chaser, that is a halachic construct that says you had no financial benefit, therefore you can't pay anything because you didn't benefit and he didn't, and it didn't cost.
Okay,
there's no cost and there's no benefit.
I got it.
Ella, what must it be? The alternative. Why are we talking about it? Because it's a chaser kaima la agra, the gaver de avid lemegar. We're talking here about a place that normally the guy who does, it's an Airbnb, the guy rents it out, but it was empty. And you snuck in and you slept there one night when it was empty. So then, of course, you benefited, and the other guy lost money because now he can't rent it out while you were there.
Theft.
So don't say that.
I take it back. I take it back. Sorry. I take it back. I take it back.
It doesn't say theft. It says ze nehene v'ze chaser.
Sorry.
That equation of me having financial benefit and it cost doesn't necessarily mean that you paid out money, but it prevented you from making money. So then, of course, you have to pay.
An and or an or, like it was both criteria.
Yes, absolutely. It says the scenario would be chaser de kaima la agra v'gaver de ovid lemegar. So then that's a case of zen nene v'zeh chaser, and of course you have to pay. Says Rashi. You got to see the Rashis here. Okay? Inema. Hachi Garcina. It's right. You can pick it up on the 4th to the bottom line. Inema b'chaser de lo kaima la agra v'gaver de lo ovid lemegar zeh lo nene v'zeh lo chaser. Why? De lo ovid lemegar zeh shedar ba'osa chaser. I'm sorry. The lo avid lemegar zeshadar ba'oso chatzer eno asui liskor chatzeros lefi shemitzui lo batim lahashel. He could have borrowed somebody's house. Oh yesh lo bayit acher. He has another house in the city, and he went in there anyway. So ze lo nene de hashchiach le batim b'chinam, because he could have gotten exactly the same results without paying any money. So that's called lo nene. V'zelo chaser, the holo kaimel agra, upshita de potter. He never rents it, so he's not. He didn't lose anything because I was there. By being there, didn't cost him anything. Ella, what? It must be kaimel agra, right? I'm sorry. It is a gavra de ovid lemegar, and the house is a kaimel agra. So then zenene sharei hayalo liskor bayit acher, because he's a gavra de kaimel agra. He needs to rent. I'm sorry. He's an ovid lemegar. He needs to rent. And zechaser, the chatzero kaima lahaskir, the havim mogir liachrina. I would have rented it to somebody else if you wouldn't have been there. So that's a zen nene, because you would have had to pay rent. Zechatzer, because I would have rented it to somebody. So it's possible that you have to pay. So those are the 2 extreme cases where it's clear that you either have to pay or don't have to pay. So what's the scenario of dar b'chatzer chavero shalom midaito? What did Ruvain do in Shimon's chatzer that Shimon didn't know about it? Where is the judiciable money? Where's the judiciable money? Says the Gemara, lo tzricha. B'chotzer de lo kaima la'agra. It's your own your house. You don't rent your house. But you know what? You're on vacation, and I snuck in and I put my sleeping bag on your floor. Okay, I want to make sure that I didn't use your linens. I put my sleeping bag on your floor. The Gavra de Abed Lamegar. If I wouldn't have done that, I would have had to go to a hotel. I had no other choice. In other words, I go to a hotel. I never sleep on the park bench. I go to a hotel. Okay, right? Or I go to an Airbnb. But I saw that your house is empty. I snuck in and I pitched my sleeping bag on your floor. So was I nene?
Yes.
I was nene. Were you chaser?
No.
Because you never rent it. So I didn't cost you any rent because you wouldn't have rented it anyway. So that's the question. What's the argument? Remember, when you have a shiloh like this, you have to have two equally compelling arguments. Matzi Omar le mai chasarticha. I, the squatter, could say to you, the owner, what did I cost you? What did I cost you? What's the answer?
Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing.
Oh, Dilma, Matzi Omar, but you can come back to me and say, it hanita. You had hana from me. You got to pay for the hana. Says Rashi.
Rabbi, we're assuming that he doesn't use the water and not the electricity.
Nothing.
Bag on the floor.
Nothing. It's dar b'chotzer. Chotzer was an outdoor backyard. He pitched his tent on the patio. Well, no loss. Right. Okay? No loss. Read my lips.
Right.
No loss. Okay, says Rashi. The lokaima la'agra, the gavra the ovid l'megar. The havile zenene, because the guy who was kaima la'agra, I'm sorry, because the gavra is ovid l'megar, he's nene. V'zel lo chaser, because the chaser is lo kaima la'agra. So Reuben, who pitched who put his sleeping bag on the living room floor, on the tile living room floor, certainly at Anah, because he would have had to pay for an Airbnb, right? But the guy who has the house didn't lose anything because he never rents it. All right. So either you could say, there have to be competing claims here. To create a suffix, you have to have competing claims. Okay. When I walk in and I say, you owe me $100, I lent you $100, right? And you say, yeah, I know, but I don't have the money. I don't want to pay. That's not a competing claim. Okay. You got to have competing claims. Okay. So my chasarticha, habalav achilo mugris, I didn't cost you anything because you wouldn't have rented it anyway. Or, back to now on Amud Beis, hois hanita, di lav chaser didi, havi ogir achrini. The owner could say, hey, if you wouldn't have pitched your sleeping bag on my floor, you would have had to go to an Airbnb and pay $100. So therefore, yeah, you had hana from my living room and you got to pay rent. Or no, but you didn't save any money because you never would have paid anyway. Okay? All right, so that's the Shaila. Now, what we will notice, and all the Rishonim make a big deal, but I don't want to get sidetracked right now, but you will keep in the back of your minds that there's one case that wasn't talked about. There are we talked about three cases. We talked about a guy who doesn't rent and the house is not an Airbnb. We talked about the guy who does rent and the house is an Airbnb. And we talked about a third case. The guy doesn't rent. The guy rents, but the house is not an Airbnb.
Right.
What case did we not talk about?
Where the house is an Airbnb, but the guy doesn't usually pay rent.
And therefore he is a lo nene.
Yeah, but the other guy suffered a loss.
The Airbnb is a chaser, but he's a lo nene. It doesn't talk about that case. Okay, so you realize if it doesn't talk about that case, you can expect a machlokas rishonim. Either it's obviously not chayav, or it obviously is chayav. Okay, the Gemara doesn't talk about it. We're going to see it. Okay, just I'm putting that on the side that it's not talked about, and we got to focus on what we are talking about. Okay. All right. So says the Gemara, Amar le masnisiki. Well, the case that you're talking about is really in our Mishnah. Okay, because we had a Mishnah. And everybody then knows, just to remind you, everybody knows that Shein B'Reshus Harabim. Shein B'Reshus Harabim. When an animal is in Reshus Harabim and he eats your tomatoes that are in Reshus Harabim, so Shein B'Reshus Harabim is putter. You don't pay nezek. If my animal goes into your backyard and eats your tomatoes, I got to pay for the value of the tomatoes. Okay, but if the animal eats your tomatoes in Rishus Harabim, Shein Rishus Harabim is potter. However, it does say that the guy whose animal ate the tomatoes, Rishus Harabim, has to pay mashenenes. Right? At the end of the day, your tomatoes were worth 10 shekel, and now I don't have to feed my animal lunch, which would have cost me 2 shekel. So even though I'm putter for the nezek, I have to pay for the hana'ah. Everybody remembers these halachos?
So with that halacha, then in this case, the guy.
Wait, Stuart, hold. Okay, the Gemara's gonna bring that case. Hold. Okay, hold. Again, I like guys to, even though it's very nice. When I was in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, we always used to anticipate the Gemara's kasha and the Gemara's teretz, and the Rebbe went, Shai, he figured out the Gemara's kasha. But as I got a little older, a little more experienced, I said, if a 14-year-old high school kid in Los Angeles could figure out the Gemara's teretz, something's wrong. I get the kasha must have been much bigger than we thought. Okay, that's one of my rules here. Okay, right? That when I figured it out at 14 in Los Angeles in high school, that means the question was not really understood. Okay, the answer was much deeper. The question was much harder, and the answer was much deeper. Anyway, so let's see how the Gemara says. Amar le masdisen, hey masdisen. Amar le lachishitamish le shakal sudre. Okay. Anyway, he was playing a game with him, and I'm not going to go into that. Amar le im nenes mishalemis mashenenes. Says Rashi, mishalemis mashenenes alma basar hana'a azlinan. Because at the end of the day, the fruit in Rishus Harabim, you don't pay damage. It's nothing. You put it there. You have no claim on the damage. However, even though there was lo chaser, the owner of the cow was nene, and he has to pay the 2 shekel because he saved lunch. So it's a raya that zen nene, the zen lo chaser is chayiv.
Oh, on what basis would he be chayiv? It's not a gazela. It's not Geneva. It's not somebody else's.
The answer is you had hana'ah from my tomatoes. Well, I'm sorry, what?
Rabin. It was in Rishus Harabim.
Yes, but did you save 2 shekel? You ate my tomatoes and saved 2 shekel. Correct or not correct?
That stuff from Rishus Harabim wasn't hefker?
Wait, that's exactly why it's nene v'lo chaser. You guys are missing the whole point. I'm a guy who doesn't rent. I never rent. And I snuck into your Airbnb. How much money did I save? I'm sorry, I got it backwards. I'm a guy who normally rents. Okay? And I snuck into your Airbnb. How much did I cost you?
1 night's rent.
No, I'm sorry. Erase. I'm a guy who normally rents, and I snuck into your house that you never rent, and I slept on your living room floor. That was the case of, go back to the case where we had the shaila. That was the case of a low kaima la agra v'gavra de ovid lamegar. That was the only shaila, right? If I normally rent and I sleep in your Airbnb, of course I have to pay. And if I never rent and I sleep on your living room floor that you don't rent, of course I don't have to pay. The only question was, again, go back to the last line. Lo tzricha b'chaser de lo kaima la'agra. I slept on the floor on the stone floor, on the marble floor of your living room, and I'm a gaver de ovid lamegar. I normally would have gone to an Airbnb, but you know what? I saved the money from the Airbnb. But how much did I cost you?
0.
What did it cost you by sleeping on the floor of your living room? Nothing.
Nothing.
So that's nene, zen nene, v'zelo chaser. That's the case. So the guy the guy who ate the tomatoes, did he save lunch?
Yes.
So therefore he saved 2 shekel. He had a hana of 2 shekel. Did the other guy lose anything? No, because it was Rishus Harabim. He had no claim on the tomatoes anyway. Okay? So that's a proof that if the guy has to pay mashenenes, zen nene, v'zelo chaser, has to pay hana.
But not nezek.
For sure, that's Shem Rishus Harabim. So he doesn't have to pay. That's why he's called a lo chaser, because it was Shem Rishus Harabim. He has no claim on the nezek. Okay?
From a logical point of view,
From a what?
From a logical point of view, the guy who sleeps in the other fellow's house and is normally not rented and he normally pays, yeah, that's to my mind different than the tomatoes that are placed at the side of the road and the animal ate it. I see the two different. I see them differently.
You're not comparing the right things. He only has to pay for the lunch that he didn't have to feed his animal.
Right. But he doesn't have to pay for sleeping in the house.
Well, that's the question. No, according to this, he does. According to this, we are saying that when it's zen nehne v'zel lo chaser, you got to pay. That's exactly what we're trying to prove. We're trying to prove that the guy who would have paid for an Airbnb and instead he went and slept on your living room floor has to pay you rent.
I don't see that as necessarily comparable to the tomatoes at the side of the road that my animal ate.
You're not paying for the tomatoes. You're paying for the lunch you didn't have to feed.
I understand, but what is the base? The basis. What are the bases of having to pay for something that you had hana for that doesn't affect anybody else? All right.
That's the basis. I had hana from you. I can't save. It's not appropriate. This is going to be the whole discussion. Don't worry, we're not finished. This was the proposal. Ephraim, you may be happy where we end up. Right now, you're not so happy here, but you do understand that there could be such an argument. That was the whole. Why did we ask the question? We asked the question, Zen nene, zelo chaser. Do I say, listen to the question. Do I say, my chesarticha, I didn't cost you anything. Why should I pay? And the other guy says, excuse me, ha hisna nesa. I gave you hana. You had hana from me. Pay the hana. That's the question. And this shows that a person has to pay hana. Wait, we're not finished. So he says, Amar Rava, kama lo chali v'lo margish gavra de more CIA. The guy basically is giving a little bit of a criticism that remember, this was a dialogue, okay? And he wanted to prove to him that Zeznen V'zelo Chaser has to pay. And Rava is saying, he didn't give you a good answer. Why did you accept that answer? There's no comparison to the Mishnah. To your case in our Mishnah, there's no comparison. Hi, Zen Nenevizech Chaser. Zen Nenevizech Chaser. At the end of the day, did the guy lose his tomatoes?
Yep.
Yes. At the end of the day, did you lose anything by me sleeping on your living room floor?
No.
Nothing. All right? So, Zen Nenevizech Chaser. V'hai Zen Nenevizech Lo Chaser. Okay? And therefore, he says no comparison. And therefore, the question remains unanswered. Right now, we're still in a quandary. You got to realize we have a question now. We have no proof from there because there's a chaser. Says Tosfos. Ha'is hanis. Everybody with me? Okay, somebody has to mute themselves because of background noise. Okay? So, ha'is hanis says Tosfos. Now, somebody else still has to mute background noise. Please, okay? Maybe everybody should mute until you want to talk. Everybody should mute yourselves until you want to talk. Okay. I feel the case that we just mentioned a few minutes at the beginning of the shir. Remember, there was an opinion that says that when the three brothers won a lottery and one of the brothers says, hey, why don't you just give me the field next to my field as a bar metzra? And that's kofin al miras dom, because you're not losing anything. So why do you still have a question here? Ha'is hanis, but why don't we say kofin al miras dom? Why don't we say kofin al miras dom? At the end of the day, you, Mr. House Owner, did you lose anything? You didn't lose anything. So why don't we say kofin al miras dom? And you should let the guy, and you got to let the guy be there. Shiny hacha. Why? What's the difference between that case of kofin al miras dom and we make the brothers give Ruvain the adjacent parcel to this case where we say, oh, no, maybe you have to pay for hana, is because, very critical point here, shiny hacha shaya yochol limono mitechila miladur beveso. See, kofin al miras dom means we're going to force you to forego something that doesn't cost you anything. Now, does it cost you anything to let me live in the house? does it cost you anything to let me put my sleeping bag on the floor of your living room?
No.
That's why Tosas thought it's a comparison. Says Tosas, wait a minute. Can you stop me from putting my sleeping bag on your living room? You see me coming and you say, excuse me, Karlinsky, I don't let you go. And I take you to court. Kofin al midas dom. You got to let me live in the house.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Work that way. Oh.
So of course not. You could stop me. The only question is after the fact, but certainly you could stop me. Okay?
Tosfos saying that.
And therefore it has no comparison to Kofin al midas dom.
You meaning the case of the animal where the animal already ate it?
No, we're not in that. We're not in that. No, we're not in the case of the animal. We're in the case of the house. We're in the case that we're focused on. We're focused on the case of the guy who doesn't normally, he never rents his house, and the other guy pays rent for the house. So how much is the owner of the house losing?
Nothing.
How much is the guy who rents gaining?
He's gaining. He's
what's he gaining?
Everything.
He doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to pay for a hotel.
He's saving rent. He's saving rent. Says Tosas, why isn't that Kofin al midas dom? Because just like over there, we say, hey, you two brothers, what difference does it make to you whether you have the adjacent piece or the other piece? To you, it doesn't matter. And to Reuven, it matters a lot. So Kofin al midas dom ze nehene v'ze lo chaser. That's Kofin al midas dom. Says Tosas, why don't we say the same thing here? Says Tosas, is no comparison. Because over there, it's a neutral thing, and you don't lose, and he gains, and that's all we are. But here, there's a difference, because the owner of the house, can he stop the squatter from coming in?
Yes.
He can.
So that's why we can't apply Kofin al midas dom even after the fact. Now, it could be that since he could stop him before, it could be that we're going to make him pay after the fact.
Sorry, I'm not understanding why the stopping him is the key question. I would have thought some other thing is like a key question. Like for the brothers, it's obvious that there are 3 fields, and we're just going to arrange that the bar mitzvah gets one of them. And so in a sense, the 2 other brothers.
No, the brothers don't want. The brothers want lottery.
The brothers want a lottery because they want to be able to get more from the adjacent.
So why do we force them? The answer
because
is
that's
Kofin al midas dom.
Right. That I understand. Why? Okay. In the case of I own a house and you want to sleep on my floor, I don't understand why. And I wasn't going to be there anyway. It's like a house I own on the other side of town. I don't understand why the question that we ask is, am I able to stop you? And yes, I am able to stop you, and therefore this changes the scenario. I would have thought of something else. Like, no, the answer is this is an ongoing scenario that obviously homeowners don't want other people just sleeping on their floors. That just bothers their whole ongoing sense of ownership of a property. Well, I don't see why the stop me is the question.
Now you're saying something else, which is much more abstract. Tosas is making a very tight distinction between the case of the adjacency and our case where we don't apply Kofin al midas dom because you can't force me. Kofin al midas dom means we force you. Can we force you to let the guy in?
No.
Only if you're in communist Russia.
Why can't Kofin al midas dom say force? And the answer, says Tosas, is that's not on the radar screen. Right. All right, that the owner can't stop Shimon from coming in. It's all after the fact if he did it. But certainly before the fact, Tosas wants to say that since there's Kofin al midas dom, we shouldn't make the guy pay rent after the fact. Right. And Tosas says since he could have stopped him before the fact, you can't apply Kofin al midas dom anymore.
So this is not a question then of whether Beit Din could come along and say, oh, you have to let him continue sleeping here for the rest of the month because this is your house on the other side of town and you're never there anyway. So we're not talking about that type of question.
No, we're talking about that and we're saying that that Beit Din cannot force.
And but that's not because of no,
that's why Kofin al midas dom is not applicable.
Because this isn't the type of case where Beit Din would make that.
Exactly. In other words,
and why isn't
Tosas's problem is the fact? No, you're missing Tosas's problem. So we're talking here about making the guy pay after the fact, correct?
Yes.
and it's literally the question arises: what's my din when zen nehene v'zel lo chaser? Says Tosfos, I don't understand. We have a rule for zen nehene v'zel lo chaser. What's the rule? Kofin al midas dom.
Yeah.
So says Tosfos,
Yeah.
I got to find a reason why we don't apply that here.
I see. And so there is no kofin because he already slept there. The only question is retroactively, do we require him to pay?
And no good Zeder, so why is it even a question? It should have been obvious. It should have been obvious he doesn't have to pay. Well, Tosfos says, bother, why is there even a question? Of course he doesn't have to pay. Kofin al midas dom. Why are we even having a question here? Says Tosfos, we have a question because since before the fact he could have stopped him, now it's not so obvious what's the din going to be after the fact.
How much are we going to make them pay?
That's how Tosfos is phrased. Again, don't take sides. We have a shaila. It's a question whether we make them pay or not. Then Tosfos says,
How
wait a
much
minute.
can we make them pay?
But says Tosfos, said the rent. Says Tosfos, the amount he would have had to pay. How much hanah did he have? How much hanah did he have? Okay? So, but now Tosfos says, wait a minute. But there's a machlokus over there. Remember, there's a machlokus. And there is an opinion over there that that the brothers don't have to give up their rights there. Says Tosfos, Ulamande Amar Hassam Malin Le Kinichse Devar Marion. I hope you realize, you guys remember that case, that they can't be forced. Mishum de Dami Lemono Chavero Mitchila Lodor Beveso. And they say that's exactly their argument, that you're going to force me to give up my financial rights. Well, you can't force me to give up my financial rights, and therefore you can't force me to let the guy in, and therefore the issue here has nothing to do with the case over there in Baba Basra. Aval hacha, kvardar, he already lived. So now I want to know, after the fact, maybe I will say zen and v'zelo chaser, even though before the fact I would certainly never apply kofin al midas dom. Before the fact I would never apply kofin al midas dom. The only question is after the fact. Okay. Then Tosfos says like this. Now I don't know. I'll tell you the case outside. It's a little bit of a complicated case. If you didn't learn Ksubas for a long time, you may not remember it, but I'll try to make you. So there is a question of kamle. Everybody knows what kamle b'derabba mine is? Okay, so kamle b'derabba mine means when there's a chi of mammon and a chi of misa that come simultaneously. So you don't pay the mammon, you only get the misa. And there's a shaila, what about kares? How about if I have a simultaneous chi of kares, not a chi of mammon? Because mammon, misa, I meant misa. Misa is bidei bezdin. You get executed. What happens when you violated an Isser Kares? What happens to you in this world? What tangible consequence is there for somebody violating a chi of Kares?
Malchus.
No,
nothing.
No, there's nothing.
Death.
There's
You
no
get something from Mitzrayim.
So, but if he wasn't warned for Malchus, nothing happens. If he wasn't warned for Misa, we still say Kamle b'derabba mine. Okay, that's kind of the Bechizkiya. Okay, Chayvi Misa Shogigin. So we say that there's Kamle b'derabba mine in Misa, even if you weren't warned. What about Kares? Well, there's no warning. So there is an opinion. There is an opinion that Kares plus Mammon also has Chiyuv, also has Kamle b'derabba mine. But the Gemara has a problem. The Gemara has a problem finding a case where, there's Kares and there's Misa b'dei Shamayim. And there's a machlokas in the Gemara about Kares and Misa b'dei Shamayim, where it could be that Kares has Kamle b'derabba mine and Misa b'dei Shamayim doesn't. And the Gemara is looking for a case where that matters. And the case that they find is that somebody is eating chelev. So chelev is Kares. Okay, and he needed to be simultaneous that I incur the chi of mammon and the chi of misa at the same time. Well, if I steal your chelev, I incur the chi of mammon before I eat the chelev. So the Gemara there has to go through a scenario where it's Ruvain takes Shimon's chelev and stuffs it down Levi's throat. So if Levi swallows it, by choice. Now, he didn't push it all the way down. He stuffed it into his throat in a way where if he spits it out, he could spit it out, but it will be worthless. Okay? But he could spit it out, and he didn't spit it out. He swallowed it. So there's Chiyuv Kares. because he chose to swallow it instead of spitting it out. But what did he spit out? What could he have spat out? In other words, what did he swallow it at a point where if he would have spat it out, it would have been worthless? So how much nezek did he do by swallowing it?
Apparently none.
Zero.
It's worthless.
Nezek. Excellent. When it was stuffed into his mouth at a point where if he spits it out, it will be worthless. When he swallows it, he's chayiv misa, a chayiv kares, but there's no chayiv mamon because he didn't damage anything because it was already damaged by the guy who stuffed it into his throat. Says the Gemara, but he pays hanas grono. Did he enjoy it? At the end of the day, the stomach was filled a little bit. So there's a little bit of hana. Okay? That's the case. Okay? That if he spat it out, it would be worthless. Okay? But if he swallowed it, he had hanas grono. Says Tosfos, so how much is he going to have to pay? It's a zen nene. I was nene from the hanas grono. But how much did the owner lose? How much did the owner lose because I swallowed it?
Nothing. It was worthless.
So therefore, it's a zenene v'zeh lo chaser. That's what Tosfos is going to be bothered by. Says Tosfos, B'im Tomar, Hahuda tochav lo chaveru beveis habliya deresh elu nairos. Amai chayev ha'ochel. Why is the guy who swallowed it chayev anything? In other words, he's being chayev hanos grono. It's a zenene because he had hanos grono. V'zel lo chaser. Who? Shimaya machzir ha'senim eses ve'ein shava klum. And yet the Gemara says that that's a case of kamle b'derabamine, and he's exempt from the mamon. Says Tosfos, there's no mamon here because it's a zenene v'zel lo chaser.
I know we're obviously not learning that Gemara right now, but I don't really understand how the owner of the chalef is not having a loss. He could have used that chalef if it wouldn't have gotten into Levi's throat.
That's going to be Reuven's problem. Reuven will be a mazik. Of course, Reuven's going to be a mazik. The question is, what is Levi's financial responsibility? And the Gemara says Levi's financial responsibility is hanas grona because he had hana. And says Tosfos, he had hana, but he had hana without Reuven losing it, without Shimon losing anything. That's the problem.
Again, I might be going the wrong direction, but
Did Shimon have any loss from Levi's hana?
Right, but how come we're not going to the case where Reuven bit some of
Daniel, let's not talk about why we don't go to other cases. Let's talk about this case. This is clearly a case of zenene because he has to pay hanas grono, and zelo chaser because the owner lost nothing since by the time he should have spat it out, it was worthless. Okay. And yet he swallowed it, which is what we need for him to be chayiv simultaneously kares and mama. How much mama? Hanas grono. This Tosfos is zenene v'zelo chaser. Says Tosfos, this is one of the key points that we're going to need in the sugya. Delo dummy. Why? Hoil v'nene machmas hachisaron shahaya mitechila. At the end of the day, did the owner did Shimon have some loss? At the end of the day, is Shimon out money?
Yes.
He's out money. Okay. So therefore, midi dehave ahadetnan mitoch harachava mishali mashanenes. The exact same case where if Reuven's animal ate Shimon's tomatoes from Rishus Harabim, he's got to pay hanas the hana the aleisa lo mechayev the have shein Rishus Harabim ela hanas me'av mechayev afal pi she machziro ein shum klum. If the animal would have spat it out, it would have been worthless. So Tosfos, as you saw it here, is that there could be, that's called chaser. It's called chaser. If I'm nene and you ended up losing money, then that could also be called some kind of a cheser. So when I slept on your living room floor, you lost no money, okay? But at the end of the day, when you're out something from your pocket, that already could create that makes it not. It's no more a zen nene v'zel lo chaser. Even though the hana and the cheser may be disconnected, but there is a status called cheser. We're going to see this again in other Rishonim. It's going to be a very important point. what's the definition of zenene v'zeh lo chaser? Okay, back to the Gemara. We have another couple minutes. Let's go back to the Gemara. Okay. So Rava is saying, how come he accepted the answer? But it's not a zenene v'zeh lo chaser. It's a zenene and zeh chaser. The owner of the tomatoes lost something. He lost his tomatoes. So it's not comparable. Rami Bar Chama. Why did Rami Bar Chama think it's a good example? Stam peiros b'shus harabim afkure mafkilu. You guys said it before. That peiros is 000. Once you put those peiros in reshus harabim, it's tantamount to being 0, and therefore there's no cheser anymore. And that's why he thought it was comparable. Because he thought that the animal eating the tomatoes in reshus harabim is a lo cheser at all. Just like the guy sleeping on the floor of the house that's never rented, there's lo chaser at all. Okay? You guys alluded to that. And that's the question is whether, and Tosas raised, I'm not going to do the Tosas, you can see it on your own, the Afkure Mafkuru, but the question is whether it's really worthless or it's as if it's worthless. Anyway, okay, I have a big question whether to do the next Gemara or skip it because it's very tricky, but I'm going to, we'll as long as you don't ask too many questions on how Rashi learns Pshat, so I don't have to go to Tosfos. We'll get the basic principle according to Rashi. Okay, do it quickly. By the way, we did do this Gemara years ago in much more in depth, but now we're going to just see the basic point. Hamakiv chaveru mishalosh ruchos. Look at the picture. Okay, the picture is what we've got. Makiv chaveru mishalosh ruchos. Gana rishona shniya shlishis. Okay, so now we've got Ruvain built outside walls and inside walls. Okay, and he would like Shimon to participate in the cost of the walls. Okay, ein mechayven oso. Ruvain has to. Shimon pays nothing. Shimon pays nothing. Diuk ha revius mechayven oso. What's the scenario? Revius says Rashi. You got to see Rashi. What's the scenario? Okay, so mishalosh ruchosav. All right, it's about fourth narrow line. Shalosh ruchosav. Hayalo Ruvain shalosh saros. Eitzel saros Shimon. Mishalosh ruchosav. Like the picture. The Goda Ruvain as Harishona Samuch l'Sadeh Shimon, meaning he's talking about the inner walls. Levad mechitzos hachitzon is besides the outer walls. Shahayelo beino levein shara because. So the focus we have right now is on the inner walls. Ves hashniya v'shlishis kazeh. Ein mechayven oso. Ein mechayven es Shimon klum. Shimon doesn't have to pay anything for those inner walls. Why not? What benefit does Ruvain have? What benefit does Shimon have from those inner walls? It's wide open, and anything that anybody can come into anything. He has absolutely no benefit from those walls. Okay, and therefore he does not have to pay. But revis diuk. What happens if there's a fourth wall? How do we get a fourth wall? Says Rashi the scenario. Ha'im hayalo leRuvain dalid sados me arba ruchos shel Shimon. What happens if Ruvain had 4 fields? So there's another field, and Ruvain built a fourth wall between him and Ruvain, between him and Shimon. The Godron then mechayven et Shimon latet et chelko b'mechitzos apnimios shebeino lebein Ruvain. You know, the whole diuk is that we don't make Shimon pay anything because he has no benefit from those 3 inner walls. But if Ruvain would have built 4 inner walls because he has another field, and therefore he's building outer walls and inner walls, that then Shimon would have to pay for the inner walls. Zenene, Shimon certainly is benefiting from the inner walls. Vizelo chaser, Ruvain, shara yesh lo ligdor sadeh. Ruvain would have to build it anyway. Right? Well, we see that Ruvain has to build it because he built the 3. Now he builds a 4. So Ruvain would have to build walls anyway. So why should Shimon have to pay? Shimon didn't build it. Ruvain built it. But Ruvain was chaser, right? I'm sorry, Ruvain is lo chaser because he had to do it anyway, and Shimon was nene. What do you see? You see zen nene v'zeh lo chaser chayiv. Let's see that again inside. Hamakiv chaver b'sholosh ruchosa v'godar esash b'sholosh l'shniya v'sashlishis ein mechayven oso harevius. If Ruvain would have built all 4 walls because he has 4 fields, mechayven oso, we would have made Shimon pay. We're going to make Shimon pay for the hana, even though Ruvain didn't spend any more money. Because of Shimon, says the Gemara. No, it's not true. Shiny Hassan, Damar Liad Garabli Hakefi Yasera. Says Ruvain, what do you mean? I paid a lot more money because of your field there, because I had to build bigger outer walls. And my outer walls are much more expensive because of you, and therefore you cost me. Meaning, if you wouldn't be there, if we could pick up your field and get rid of it and contract my fields, I would have spent less money on the perimeter walls. Says Rashi. Hekefa Yisera. De'i lav sad. Again, there's a big machlokas Rashi tells us here. I want to keep it simple because we don't really need to go deeply into this sugya. All right. De'i lav sada shel Shimon bein sadosav. Havisagi le b'mechitzos chitzonios. V'havi kol sadosav gedurim. Hilka chaser hu b'shvilo. He doesn't need to build. If Shimon wouldn't be there, he doesn't need to build any inner walls. Okay, he doesn't need any inner walls. So the only reason he has to be inner walls is because Shimon is there. So we say, Shimon, you caused me to build inner walls. Therefore, you got to pay for those inner walls because you're nene and I'm chaser. So therefore, there's no proof from this case. We're going to stop here and pick it up next time, the continuation of the Gemara. And we're going to go, again, we need to go all the way to the middle of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. And then we need to see the Rif, a few lines of the Rif, then back to the Rosh, and then to the Nemuke Yosef. So the order is going to be Rif, Rosh, Nemuke Yosef. Okay? Again, keep in mind the question. We're always looking for a case where Zen Nene, he saved money, Vizelo Chaser didn't cost the other guy anything. That's the case. Okay. See you guys, Bezrat Hashem on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,